Hi, and good morning to Peter and Sophie. Peter from the UK, an Australian in the UK, and Sophie directly from Sweden. Actually, funny thing, always considered one of the happiest countries on earth, the Nordic countries. So if there is somebody that can talk about happiness, probably Sophie, because of her extensive experience in Sweden as being a Swedish also.
Mm,
So, Sophie,
yeah.
look happy and give us a way to be happy and stay happy.
Yeah. Well, just about your what you said about that Swedes being very happy. I think it's really weird that you can measure happiness in that way. Because if you look at the number of antidepressant pills that the Swedes take, they are not very happy. So I think we are a country. We are the most secular society in the world, and that means that we are not really connecting ourselves with anything bigger than ourselves, like a religion or anything like that. And we've been like that for a long time, and we're one of the first countries where you allowed religious freedom, and we really exercise that. So today we have a lot of disconnected people in Sweden, and this has started a movement which is about existential health. And it's more or less like, how can you, as an atheist or agnostic who don't really want to connect yourself with one belief or one religion view, still feel like you are part of something bigger together with other people? And that's quite popular. And it's like this thing, what you do is like, you can either go to like existential seminars, small chat rooms, coffee shops, and talk about these questions. And that has brought a lot of, like, it's a new big perspective for people, which make them feel really satisfied and good about themselves. And I've not seen it myself, but WHO, the World Health Organization, they have something called Existential Health on their website. And I tried to Google for it, but I couldn't find it right now. But they are talking about this spiritual connection. What is the purpose with life? What's happening after death? Do you have any kind of spiritual strength inside you? What's your personal beliefs? And I think like lots of the things that are happening now, we have lots of famous speakers who are talking about lifestyle options. And I think what they actually are doing, they're filling this part of this empty room that we all have in our hearts because we don't feel like we belong somewhere. And another point to that is, I think that people who are involved in membership-based organizations, they feel a very strong connection there. And this strong connection is, I think it's an amazing way and be healthy to, realize that when you're part of something bigger and do something together with others, you get happy. So if you can exercise these things, I think that's one way to find more happiness in your life.
Okay, thank you very much, Sophie. So a very Swedish perspective. So Peter, Australians, they find a lot of happiness in Foster or something like that.
No, that's a myth.
That's a myth.
That's a myth created by advertisers. But, yes, I think, just from a cultural perspective, I think Australians are known to be more laid back kind of people. They say it how it is and enjoy life. But like every country, we have a dark side as well. We have high levels of depression and suicide, like probably most Western countries, actually. But the first tip that I have, which I think is probably one of the most powerful I've ever come across, is to wake up to the fact that voice in your head that's constantly criticizing, judging, analyzing, being critical of you, being critical of others, that voice in your head isn't really you. And that is a simple but profound concept. And I trained as a psychologist over 30 years ago. I started that process. I've been fascinated by psychology. I've learned from some of the best in the world. I've taken a huge interest in all of this. And yet the person who really taught me this, who really helped me wake up to this, is a guy who's got absolutely no education at all. And he lives here in the UK. And his name is Richard Wilkins. And Richard is essentially teaching something that is in all of the timeless wisdom that you'll find in any spiritual or religious text over the centuries. But Richard came up with a very simple way of illustrating the point. It's so powerful, and simple, it's ridiculous. So if I was to ask you, if you had a choice, would you choose to feel good or not feel good? What would you say? What would you choose?
I think everybody would choose to feel good.
Yeah. And if I asked anybody at any time, 24/7, what would they choose? I think the answer would be, I would choose to feel good. So that's question one. Question two, have you ever not felt good? And most people would say, yeah, I felt stressed, anxious, depressed, upset, angry, whatever. I haven't felt good. Okay, so when you didn't feel good, who was choosing? And what do people normally say? What would you say? Who's choosing?
Normally they say that circumstances, but in a way, actually it connects with my point. It's your choice.
Exactly. So they'd say, I'm choosing. And then what you realize is there's a total contradiction, because you've told me 24/7 you would choose to feel good. And yet when you don't feel good, you told me you chose not to feel good. So that means it's not you choosing, something else is choosing. So the question is, what is that thing? And Richard came up with this simple concept, and he calls it the script. And the idea is that all through your life, as soon as you arrive on the planet, kids arrive and they're here to have a good time, explore, play, have fun, feel good. And yet they're told things. You shouldn't be like this. You should do that. You shouldn't do that. Should. This is how you're meant to look as you grow up. This is the car you have to drive. This is the house you're meant to live in. This is the kind of lifestyle you're meant to have. You're told what you should be, right? We're always told that by advertisers. Everyone's telling us what we should be, our parents, our teachers, our friends. And so we believe that, and that voice kicks up as what Richard calls the script. It's a story that's embedded into us that we think is who we are, and it's not who we are at all. It's just a story. So and one of the things he says is, I can't tell you that you can get rid of it. I can't tell you that I know how to take it away, because you can't. It's always there. The difference is your relationship changes, because you now know that it isn't you, and you listen to it and you go, yeah, I hear what you say, but I'm going to choose to feel good. Whatever's going on, I'm going to make a different choice. So knowing there's a difference between the voice in the head and the real you is the most powerful thing and the key to happiness.
Thank you, Peter. Because we were like doing a kind of the, let's say, location happiness. Sorry, I'm having some throat problems. That's why I'm drinking tea the whole time. It is interesting that we in Portugal we are known by our depression. Our most popular song is Fado, that is about nostalgia and homesick and things like this. So we are, in a way, sad guys, but we have everything to be happy. We have great food, great weather, and we regret
great people.
Yeah, well, yes, of course. And the interesting thing is that, and connecting exactly with your point, is that we choose to be. Because it is very interesting how, if we are depressed, we tend to hear sad songs, to see drama movies. If we are happy, we are into the comedy mood, into happy songs, and to meet people. So it is our choice, because we have drugs inside us. That's why I say that my first advice is use your own drugs. We have things like dopamine, endorphins, oxytocin, that they can change your mood. So we can, if we concentrate, we can change our mood like this. Because we have the drugs inside. We don't need the pharmaceutical industry to put us some antidepressive things. We don't need big, complicated procedures in terms of life paths or something like that. We have the drugs inside us. And we have simple things. And the most stupid thing that I know is if you do like this, only this, okay? I'm doing a very stupid smile. What happens is that your brain doesn't know if you are smiling because you are happy or because you are doing it on purpose.
You
So
look Chinese.
yeah, I look Chinese like this. Yeah, it's not an impersonation of a Chinese person, but it is happy. I'm very happy. So what I'm doing is I'm shooting myself with some endorphins. So basically, if you try, if you are depressed and you do it like this, like 30 seconds, your mood will start shifting. If you are going for a meeting that is a complicated meeting, if you do like this, not in the meeting, but before going to the meeting, you will change your mood and the meeting will go better. I do this with my students before any examination. I do this exercise and it's very funny because they are like very stressed that they are about to start an examination. And I say, well, first, before starting the examination, let's do an exercise. So I increase their level of stress for 1 dot more. And suddenly they are like doing like this and they start laughing in the room. And what I did was unblock their creativity and create a different mood to do an examination. So I cheated, so they get better grades. So, Sophie, from
Yeah, I'm
Happy
smiling.
Sweden.
I'm smiling. No teacher did that to me when I was in school.
But I'm the craziest one.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going into deeper existential thinking now. I was intrigued a few years ago to go to a death cafe where you talk about death. And I did that a few times. And the first time I did it, I realized I never felt so alive as I did on a meeting. And it lasted for about 2 hours and it was just an amazing experience. And I think, I don't know what it is, but we don't really have a room to talk about death. If you would have a normal chat with a friend and you said, my fear of death, I would like to talk about the thoughts I have about death, many people would be quite scared. But they organize these death cafes now, and they're all over the world. And you have a death cafe website and death cafe Facebook page, and they're very active. And when I went to these meetings, it was really, how can I say? We sat in a nice restaurant, and a private room of the restaurant, and we had ourselves as the agenda, so nobody could come there and say, I want to talk about my problems. Everybody had an equal part of the conversation, and people were talking about like things in their lives where death had any kind of effect on them. Some people talked about their anxiety. Some people asked me questions that I never ever had to consider about death. And what really sort of touched me was that when I talk about death, I actually talk about life. And we are like, quite often in the world, we don't have a room to talk about it. We don't really have these deep conversations that often. And before I found this death cafe, which was in West London in Putney, I was thinking about joining, like I would like to join like a group where you talk about deep questions, because in my life, I didn't have that opportunity. But anyway, when you're looking for happiness in your life, you can really consider the time you have here and what you do with it. And if you find this kind of space where you can have these kind of conversations, it's a wonderful thing. So whatever these conversations are branded, if it's a death cafe or if it's a really nice dinner. You know, you can try to find these conversations, and it's really uplifting.
Okay, interesting, interesting way. Well, I didn't know that kind of cafe.
Mm.
So, Peter, your second.
I really want to get along to a death cafe. I'm really interested.
By the way,
Yeah,
there
they're
is some echo. I don't know where it's coming from.
It wasn't there before.
Yeah, it's not from me because I'm using this kind of thingy. So
Yeah.
if you can lower the volume of your loudspeakers, maybe it's better. Okay.
I haven't got loudspeakers, so anyway, my second one is that we need to remember that what is reported on the news is not a representative sample of reality. Now, I don't know if it's any different in Portugal or Sweden, but certainly in UK, Australia, America, most of the news is bad news. It's news that tends to generate fear. It's based on something that's dramatic because it gets attention, it sells newspapers, and so on. And yet it isn't, I think, a representative sample of what's going on in the world. There is so much good thing. There are so many good things going on in the world, but they don't report most of them because they're a bit boring. I think we need to just remember that. I've been to client offices where they have a reception area, and the person on the reception desk has to have 24/7 news playing all the time, and I can only imagine they probably go home feeling a bit depressed at the end of the day and not knowing why. So it's fine to dip into the news and see what people are talking about, but I think it's important to keep things in perspective, and if anything, you increase your resolve to bring more energy and joy to everything else you do. So you become like a bringer of good news to the world. So that's my second one.
That's very interesting, because normally I say that there are few countries that have the right of good news in the world. So one of them actually is the UK, because you will never get good news from Portugal or even Sweden. It's always something bad happen over there. That's the way we enter the news. Countries like US or UK or a bit Japan, Germany, they have the few good news that they are coming from there, because other countries and Sweden and Portugal are not the worst. Imagine that you are from Uzbekistan or something like that. You only get bad news from there. You never get the news, only if there is like an earthquake, a flood, or something like that.
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
Okay, so my third is an exercise that is never regret. I think the echo is coming from you, Sophie.
Yeah, I do another try.
Can you try to take the microphone out? So,
yeah.
Okay. So, never regret. Regret is the stupidest thing that we can do, because we could regret if we would live in parallel realities. If we live in a parallel if we could see the things that we did or not do, the impact on them in a parallel reality, we could regret, because we could say, oh, we would be better off if we have done this or not done. But because we don't live in parallel realities, that's the magic. Everything that we do has a consequence, and we don't know exactly if it's better or worse if we haven't done it, or if we have done it in another way. So even something that is tragic sometimes has a way of avoiding an even more tragic thing. So I think, and putting the connection with the death talk, I think you only can regret if you die. Okay, it's like, but at that point, I think we don't regret anything. So if we are still alive, nice. because we might have been run over by a car, but we are alive. So so if we, maybe we are crossing a street and we got run over by a car, but the alternative would be like, okay, we would cross another one and we would be killed by another car. We never know, but we always think, no, we would be much better. We never know. So if we are still alive, don't regret. Sophie, what is your third one?
Yeah, well, my third one is about expanding your vocabulary and get more words to describe what's going on in your life. And I got this in a group work I did, and we talked about what are feelings really, and a lot of people started to just spit out words that were not actually feelings. So they said, when you say this, I feel bored, I feel disgusted, I feel horrified, and they try to express how they feel, but that's not the feeling. A feeling is like, I feel envy, I feel sad, I feel jealous, and we have been like bombarded with lots of different messages that, you know, we should encourage like positive thinking and see the positive in everything that's happening in life. And the truth is, like, you know, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't work. But if you don't have access to the words that may describe how you feel, you can have, like, you don't have everything from A to Z. You don't have the whole alphabet. You may just have access to part of the alphabet of emotions. And I think it's important to sort of start to be able to describe, like, you know, maybe life is not that shit. It's just that you don't know how to describe it. And by having more words to describe it, you know, you feel misery, you feel ashamed, you feel pain, and at the same time you can also feel love and you can feel happiness. But, you know, explore all the different kind of feelings that there are, and lots of the feelings you try to explain as feelings are like actually just some kind of thinking, which is trying to push away those awful feelings. And I also have a thing that we use mobile devices all the time, is that it's very easy to grab your mobile phone instead of feeling of those hard emotions. So when they come to you, they like, you're drowning in them. But as being a whole human being, you have to feel both the good emotions and feelings and the bad ones both exist in your world. Otherwise, you might just end up having a small access to a small library. You know, you'll get a bigger library in your brain if you have access to all these different emotions. And I will, after the event here, I will tweet and I will put up some things about this, because I think it's quite important.
Peter, your last one. Sorry, I took the microphone because of my drinking tea habits.
My last one is, it's a little bit like the previous in terms of where we pay attention. So the first thing is to notice what's beautiful around you, notice what's great, so you really appreciate it, rather than just focusing on your own concerns and fears. Also pay attention to all of the good things around you. And when you have disappointments and when you have frustrations, which is part of the human journey, see it as fuel for wisdom. Turn it into wisdom. Use it to become stronger. Use it to become wiser, and you will never have any regrets. Which is back to your point, Philip. There's a book I've read now twice. I just reread it recently, called The Complaint-Free World by Will Bowen. And he sets the challenge of going for 21 days without complaining, gossiping, or criticizing. And when you catch yourself doing that, you have to start again. So it took him 6 months to do 21 days in a row. My record so far is 4 days, and I've been going for 2 months this year. It's a challenge, but it keeps you awake to the fact that we do complain, criticize, and gossip a lot. And he said you have to persist, because a lot of the time you don't realize you're doing it. So I think learning to focus on what's good around you is a way of moving away from that. So I've got a lot of work to do there still.
I was smiling because I was remembering an episode with my father. We are in a car trip, and it is like a 4-hour car trip. And the way that he's 85, so he's always complaining about everything, and and everything is a little bit negative. So and he's very keen on saving money. So at some point I decided in the car trip, I said, well, look, I will give you €5 if you manage to keep 1 hour without any negative wording.
Your money was safe, was it?
It was so safe. It was so safe. I knew that I could have said €5,000,000. It would be the same. But I decided to put it in a realistic perspective so he could see it. And it was so funny because he shut up for like 10 minutes. And after 10 minutes, he went down. It was really, really, really interesting. It was like a sociological experience. Well,
Right.
my
Can I
last...
say one?
Yes,
Can
yes.
I say one thing connecting to Peter? Because I was on I was sailing a boat from Mallorca to Sweden during like a 6-week holiday a few years ago, and one of the rules of the boat was that you were not allowed to gossip, you were not allowed to all of these things. That was part of the rules, and
Well,
it was really quite. No, you didn't. But it was, for me, it was such a good experience. I felt like I cleaned myself on the inside.
Yeah.
Way, and we were like, we had, of course, we had the problems on the boats. You can talk about the problems that are affecting your safety, but you were not allowed to talk about, oh, you know, I don't really like this about that person. You were not allowed to do that, and it was amazing.
Yeah, that's great. And
amazing.
Just one other thing too, for anyone listening in, to make it absolutely clear what a complaint is. If you go to a shop for a coffee and they serve you coffee that's not hot enough, if you tell them the coffee's not hot enough and ask for a fresh one, that isn't complaining. It's when you say to your friend, oh, they never serve, you know, good coffee here, but you don't make a request. That's a complaint.
Yeah.
Okay. So my last one has to do with technology. I'm very into technology, and Sophia was talking about our mobile devices. And I think that we live in a time that people are slave to technology and not mastering technology. They are like grabbing their gadgets, and their work, what they do in life is run by email. So they see an email, so this is what I have to do, or instant messaging. So you have like relationships that are like, go there, go do this, and it's like robots. So, but this is not only the problem. The problem is that we have wonderful technology. We have things that, for instance, give us the possibility of having a very interesting conversation like we are having now. And how many times we do it. In our case, we try to do it every month, and we do it like this, and we do it for the fun of it, for the exercise. And this is only possible because of technology, because Peter is in the UK, Sophie is in Sweden, and I'm in Portugal. And we are able to have this conversation, this meaningful conversation. So we are mastering technology. We are not being slave of technology. And we are using technology in a way that can give us happiness, because when we master things, we can excel ourselves. And this is great. So don't be a slave of technology. So Peter and Sophie, do you want to add something else, something more local, wherever?
No, not really. I'm Australian living in the UK, and a lot of people here say, oh, you know, why are you here? If I could live in Australia, I'd go tomorrow. It's fantastic. And I say, yes, it is fantastic, but so is the UK, so is Europe. It's fantastic. There's so much to see and do, and it's an amazing place, and you don't see it. All you can do is complain about your own country, thinking you'd rather be in a different country. I have a choice. I choose to be here at the moment. I can choose to be there another time. But if you want to be happy, focus on what's good where you are and what's perhaps not so good where you're not. But people do it the other way around. They focus on what's good where they're not and what's not good where they are. That's a sure recipe for misery. So
we have a very Portuguese expression that the chicken of the neighbor is always better than mine.
Yeah, and I came across one that says the reason that the grass looks greener on the other side is that it's covered in bullshit.
Yeah, like I have another thing that is from my. I got reminded this week about it, and it's about finding the playfulness in your life and do things because it's fun and not because all of those shoulds that we have on our shoulders that are heavy. And if you do, like, if you play a little bit more, you get things done. Yeah. And I've seen it in my professional capacity when I've been working on things. When you do things and you play more, you get more things done.
Yeah.
And it's the same when I look at what I do with my housework and in the household and all those like boring things that you don't want to do. I've been like sorting it out, that I know that this should be done on a weekly basis. But then I try to sort of play with it a little bit more and don't just put it on the list, because I have an enormous to-do list all the time. Whatever I'm doing, I have a to-do list somewhere, somehow.
Yeah.
But anyway, so
it's a playlist.
Yeah, I think,
call it a playlist. Why don't we call our to-do lists a playlist?
Absolutely, that would be wonderful.
Brilliant.
Guys, we run out of time. Thank you very much for once more sharing and having fun using technology, by the way.
Yes.
So next time we will be here in May because it is my fault. I will be traveling a lot around the world. So let's meet again in May.
If you mastered technology, Philip, you'd be able to contact us from anywhere in the world. You need to get on top of your technology. It's not about technology, it's about time, right?
No, the thing is that sometimes people want to engage, and the other thing is that sometimes technology has to be perfect, and when I'm not sure that I have a good connection, I try not to let's say be unhappy because I knew that this would go wrong. No.
Yeah.
No regrets. No regrets.
No regrets. Okay. Have fun.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.